I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar about community, technology, and entrepreneurship networking. This is one in a series of monthly webinars we're offering for our blended broadband communities and open to anyone with an interest in using technology to improve community. In a moment, I'll be handing over the reins to Bill Coleman of Community Technology Advisors, who will provide some introductory remarks and introduce the panel that includes representatives from the Redwood Area Social Media Breakfasts, Hack for Men, and the Egan Technology Task Force. Unfortunately, Sheila Haverkamp from the Brainerd Lakes Area Economic Development Corporation couldn't be with us today. We've pulled together some resource material to accompany this webinar. You can see it right here. It's also on our Blended on Broadband blog, blendedonbroadband.org. We'll add the recording of this webinar and other presentation materials soon to this website. To interact with the panelists at any time during today's webinar, you can simply type your question or comment into the chat box. I'm sure that many of you on the call today know Bill Coleman of Community Technology Advisors, but for those who don't, Bill has been Blended Foundation's primary broadband program consultant for a number of years. Bill?
Thank you, Mary. Welcome everyone to our webinar today. And as we decided to put our webinar series together, we really thought that this topic was one of great interest. And when we did our surveys, we found out that people were indeed interested in how do you bring your technologists together in your community and try and make some additional things happen. When I work in communities and have community meetings, oftentimes we find the technology people clustered in a corner wanting to talk about the things they find important. And whenever we try and split them up, they always seem to end up back together again. And so we think that there's a lot of opportunities, especially in rural communities, for bringing your technology people together, overcoming maybe a sense of isolation they may have, that they don't feel there's a lot of tech support, a lot of tech vibrancy in the community, and that's a real challenge for technologists in rural areas. Today we have 4 speakers covering 3 topics, and I think we have a nice variety of content here. Our first presentation will be by Julie Rath and Sarah Kuglin, Learning and Networking Through Social Media Breakfast in the Redwood area. And Julie is an economic development specialist for the Redwood Area Development Corporation. She knows that infrastructure is a critical part of economic development. In addition to her focus on broadband and technology, Julie also serves as administrator for the Minnesota Valley Regional Rail Authority, which certainly was the other network that helped to build rural Minnesota in a different century and continues today, I'm sure Julie would say. Sarah Kuglin is owner of the Redwood Valley Technical Solutions in Redwood Falls, and Sarah's played a key role in organizing and managing the social media breakfast in Redwood Falls. Ladies, go ahead.
Thank you, Bill. Hello, thank you. So I'll just get started, and Julie and I will kind of go together on this. Our social media breakfast Redwood area has been going since December of 2011, and basically what social media breakfast is it really serves 2 main purposes, with face-to-face networking and of course education, and all kind of on the lines of what Bill was talking about, getting people together on technology and marketing, but also business owners, individuals, organizations to come together. And when we started, or were getting started in this, there wasn't a lot being taught or talked about with social media marketing, which was almost 2 years ago now. But actually, Social Media Breakfast is a national group, and there are different groups throughout the nation. And I had started going to the Social Media Breakfast Minneapolis-St. Paul group, which is really what got us kicked off and going into Social Media Breakfast Redwood area. So we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about why we got started, how we got started. Back in the fall of 2011, we were all looking for a way to help educate our community in the new world of social media marketing and the digital web. Like I said, I was attending the Minneapolis-St. Paul social media breakfast, and they were encouraging other groups to start their own breakfast groups as well. Julie here at the RADC was planning training sessions and breakfasts, training sessions, and we thought the breakfast would be a great way to complement those training sessions as well. So we got together and started planning, and we worked with RADC.
Sarah?
Yep.
Sarah?
Can you hear me okay?
Not quite as good as maybe we could, so if you could get closer to your phone or something, that would be great.
Sure, sorry about that. So basically, we wanted to kick off the social media breakfast alongside of the training sessions that were being planned as well, and we were calling those Let's Talk Broadband. And Julie, you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. So in May of 2011, I asked Sarah if she would host a training session to cover Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Foursquare, and a number of things that I had never even heard of because everybody is at different levels in this arena. And so we held that forum. It was a 3-hour workshop. We had 36 people come. It was kind of a great example because I'd asked at our public health meeting room if they could handle 36 wireless laptops with their wireless system, and they said it should be no problem when we crash the system. That was kind of fun. But that being said, there was a lot of information shared, and I said, gee, I think we need to go back and redo this in smaller segues. So that's when we came up with the training series. So once a month we held a training session, and that was followed, the breakfast was always the first Friday of the month, and then the training session was the second Thursday of each month. And then we also did a webinar with Ann Tracy also for people to participate in. So they were 3 different venues for people to learn about the different types of social media that were available. And the slide that is showing is our class schedule that we did all of 2011. And we did that in partnership with MinRim and the Merck funding for Blandon. So we were very much appreciative of the funding for that.
Basically, it complemented the Let's Talk Broadband classes, complemented the social media breakfast really well. So we'll talk just a little bit more about the social media breakfast, what we do, how we do it. Basically, the events are free to attend, thanks to sponsorship and support of people in our area, but the main idea behind the breakfast is to provide networking and educational opportunities to individuals, businesses, organizations. We've even had students attend. Of course, we have coffee and a light breakfast too. And since starting back in 2011, we've had a range of up to 60 attendees with an average of at least 30 people every month. And one of the things that we try really hard to do, of course, is the networking and getting people together. But then we also worked hard on trying to find speakers for the social media breakfast. And we've been doing a few different things. We were bringing in, or we still do bring in, local business owners to tell their story about how they're using social media to market their business, and how we can all kind of learn from each other and grow on that. And that's been really successful, and I think it has been great because we're learning from our peers. It's not intimidating or overwhelming, so that's been really good. We've also been bringing in regional and national speakers on an occasional basis, and we've had speakers from the Minneapolis area. We've also had Joe Miller from St. Cloud, who talked about social media for nonprofits. We brought in Constant Contact. We brought in speakers on search engine marketing and social media marketing. But one of our big events was bringing in Lee Oden of Top Rank Marketing. He's the author of the book Optimize. And one of the great things about it was, with the support of MinRim and the Blandon Foundation, every one of the attendees at the event also got to take home a signed book with them. So that was one of our big exciting events. That was in 2012. So if you want to go to the next slide, we wanted to share a little bit about what we do or how we get the word out and keep the breakfast going. So there's a lot of word of mouth, that's for sure. The networking at the events always seem to help spread the word. But we also have a website. We did partner up with the Wilmer Breakfast Group, and we'll talk a little bit about that more too, but our website is smbredwoodarea.com. We have a Facebook group with over 100 people on the group, and that's kind of how we communicate what's happening through the Facebook world. We have a hashtag for Twitter, SMB Redwood Area, and then of course we use email marketing to connect with over 200 email addresses in our list now just for the breakfast. And one of the other things that we did, like I said, I worked closely with the Wilmer Social Media Breakfast Group, and we recently on September 19th put on a full-day conference called the Social Media Rockstar event. We worked on this for over a year, but it turned out to be a really great event. We had over 125 people that attended. We had 8 speakers who were national, regional, and local. We had 9 business sponsors, which was really awesome. And one other exciting thing, if you're in the Twitter world, our hashtag SMB Rockstar event was actually trending on Twitter for Minneapolis. It was number 3 right below iOS 7, so we were really excited about that. But it was a really great day. We just shared some photos. It was a full day of people networking. We had a local radio station come and broadcast live from the event, interviewed our speakers, interviewed attendees. And it just was an all-around fun event that all came about just from the Social Media Breakfast Group starting. So at this point, we continue to hold networking and learning events on the first Friday of the month. It's been going great. We also have been helping other groups get started and assist in speaking at their events. So I've helped Wilmer, Lakefield, Worthington get started with their events and spoke at their kickoff event. Hutchinson has started a group. Pipestone, I'll be going down there in November for their kickoff event, so they're starting as well. So there's also a group in the works in New Ulm. So it's been a really fun thing, and I think we've started a really great thing going on out here in Southwest Minnesota. And it's really been fun to see everyone's enthusiasm and commitment to the group, and it's been almost 2 years. So thanks to the support of MNREM, RADC, the Blandin Foundation, the U of M Extension, all that. We've been working really hard at trying to educate our business people, organizations, and students and individuals on how to use social media to market their business.
And I'll just say, too, as the RADC was not into any of this before December of 2011, going to the classes that Sarah was one of the instructors for, we started our Facebook page. We're on Twitter also. But what I really found is as I developed our new website, which is economic development focused in our business directory, it was amazing how many of my own businesses, manufacturers, didn't do any social media at all. And so Manufacturers Week is coming up on October 20th to the 26th. And last year, I had Sarah was one of our speakers to share with them the importance of that. And then I also had the careers director from SMSU come over and talk how it is going to be the future. How are you going to find your future workforce? Because this generation doesn't necessarily read the newspaper anymore and do the traditional ways of advertising. So if you're not on social media or your website isn't interactive with social media, those jobs aren't going to be found by this generation. So that was very interesting as well.
Julie and Sarah, you have a question in the chat box. How do you avoid commercial interests trying to troll for customers at your events?
Well, we haven't had that problem.
We haven't had that problem that I'm aware of.
No, and it's really kind of an open networking event. We have coffee beforehand. We encourage networking, and we have everybody has a name tag so you know who is who. Other than that, it doesn't, it hasn't been a problem for us.
It's not an advertising format or
No.
a commercial format.
It's educational.
Yeah.
But, one of the things I think that, this is Bill Coleman, is that in rural areas, it's not like people are getting hammered with vendors trying to sell technology services. It might be a little different than Twin Cities suburbs or where there's a lot of people selling Facebook services or other social media web services. So I think one of the prime things that we've realized working with communities, rural communities especially, is how to connect them to the tech services that can help them overcome their lack of knowledge or skills around either the technical skills or the strategy skills. And so that I think having people sell services to business actually means that people are moving forward on strategies. And so Julie Foote is with MVTV Wireless in the southern part of the state, and she says we have a resource table, so if companies want to share their information, they have a specific spot for that, and it hasn't interfered with the meetings at all. So a good friend of mine used to say nothing happens until somebody buys something. And so that, in a certain way, I think holds a lot of truth to that. Redwood, Julie or Sarah, any final closings?
I guess I would just say if you're looking for something in your area that is, again, a networking opportunity, an educational opportunity, the social media breakfast groups seem to be just a really big hit. It's educational, but yeah, it's fun, it's hot topics and things that pretty much any business can do, whatever level they're at, especially with affordability and budgets and that kind of thing too. So it's been just a fun thing to see how people are, very excited to learn more and new all the time with it.
And I'll share,
Great.
Bill, at your suggestion, I started a Facebook page called the Shops of Redwood County at the end of June. I think I've made 24 different businesses in the county that either have to be locally owned or a niche retail store and or restaurant that's not a chain to be part of it. So when people come to our area for the day and want to know what's going on, they've got the information. So as content managers, they can share their information. I still am the administrator for the Facebook page. But since the end of June, they have over 260 people that have liked the site. So I think that's going really well, and it's great cross-promotion. It's not costing them anything.
Great. Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
Next, we're going to go to talk about the concept called Access. Josh Kennedy is the regional nice guy from Minnesota. That's quite a title. Josh is an entrepreneurial consultant who specializes in multi-channel strategy. And so this is something that the Landon Foundation is quite interested in, once again, as a way to help rural communities bring their technology people together, help create a more vibrant technology workforce, and make things happen in rural communities. Josh, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for bringing me on here. Landon brought me on to talk about, they're called hackathons. And at the time, I was the entrepreneur in residence for DevJam Studios, which was agile coaching and developing products in South Minneapolis. And one of their mantras was to do more interesting things with value. And one of those was to give back to the community. So part of my job was community business integration. And as a development studio that developed products and worked with software, I kind of looked out and saw that there was a hackathon, a national incentive that was going on, and that was called the National Day of Civic Hacking. And first off, to define hacking is taking information that's out there and using it for another purpose. And for us, that was working with 77 different cities and getting information from different areas of the state, the city of St. Paul, the city of Minneapolis, and working with those government entities and getting data. And when I say data, I'm talking about, there's live bus mapping that's going on that isn't presented outside of just the city keeps that data and silos it somewhere. So there's a huge amount of this data that's out there, and part of the National Day of Civic Hacking was to work with the government as part of an initiative to release that data out to citizens who had the technical know-how to build applications around that. So with DevJam, we provided the space, and I provided the networking and collaborating with multiple different entities such as like OpenTwinCities.org and several other communities which I have on the slide here. So you can actually see like how many groups were involved. And with a hackathon, it's not just one person. To get something like that going, you really need, for us, it took a large government, community-driven meetups that were going on with the whole area of the Twin Cities to really bring in a bunch of developers, because our core was to really bring in people that knew how to program, people that could build software, and provide them a space to iterate and use entrepreneurship and build products out of that. So for us, it was a 2-day weekend where we provided food and spaces and brought in, the CIO and the CEO of the state of Minnesota. We talked to the Secretary of State, and we ended up building these really great relationships and then giving construct around that with the people that were working in teams. So for us, it was a team structure where we had, prior to the event, we set up a polling finder. So this is still alive, so you can see the example of polling, and we had the community, so we went out and used social media strategy and broadcasted it out via Twitter and via website and had the community around us and to vote on what they would like to see change. So an example of that would be Elise Eberhard. She actually works for the city of Minneapolis, talked about a problem about public access to technology, and it's a valuable resource for residents who lack a computer. So what we talked about doing, and this is something where we put that problem up, and we had 77 people there, and then we all would work in a group that we built out. So we had a structure around the days where we had people get into groups and start iterating and working together on these ideas. And eventually, through that process that we did, they had 8 to 10 different projects that they worked on for the whole weekend. And what was neat is that the public was able to put their feedback out into it. So I actively was talking to the state of Minnesota and saying, hey, please have the governor submit ideas, have the Secretary of State submit ideas, have the MNIT department submit ideas, and then we can all vote on it. So we made the website out of Drupal, who one of the volunteers helped build, who's an amazing person, Colin. But it really took team collaboration for this to go off. So when I met with the Blandin Foundation earlier, I was talking about how we needed a group to do this sort of thing. And what's really neat is we had, instead of like cash prizes, we had judges and tech celebrities. And what we did is they judged which, at the end of that Sunday, which was the most, which business was built far enough that they thought that it could keep going. And one of the programs that was built out of this was called MSPBus.org, which ended up winning and actually going to the White House to watch some of the other winners. There is 77 other cities and 11,000 participants actually nationwide that went out with this. But part of that was the fact that they got to meet, James Koth, who runs, he's the program director, he works under the state CIO, Carolyn Parnell, and they actually got to talk about their business plan. So for them, they won for their prize to talk to the CIO of the city of Minneapolis, who was actively starting to work with their product because it was actually working. So to integrate with the Metro GIS, so everyone could actually get access, so the public could get access to it. And one of the things with civic hacking, it's people that are making an application, but they're not being paid to do so. So a lot of these are applications that are being built by a group of people that have never met each other, except for that weekend. And what our hope is when you build something like that, it continues on, and it's a sign of economic development. So for that group, for what they built, they're actually moving on and turning it into a business, and they want to build it into a template and then work with other cities and, bring GPS-related, active bus tracking system to everyone's smartphone. So right now, if you went onto your cell phone, it'd be mfpbus.org. I know they just changed their name to omgbus.org, but it'll still go there. And for us, what's interesting is the city of Minneapolis did not have that application before. So when you went to the bus stop, you didn't really know when the bus is coming. So this would actually give, the opportunity for someone with children such as myself that wants to see when the next bus is coming, and I can actually look and see, hey, the bus is 2 blocks away. I can start walking now because it's raining. So, there's all these things that open up from doing all of these. Right now, I'm active in participating. We're talking to the Secretary of State about voter registration information. So we're thinking about doing a hackathon around that, and we're building presence with that. So to do one of these hackathons, I put some links in at the end. Let me go to the next page here. So there are some examples of cities that have actually built upon this more than Minneapolis. And for an example, I just wanted to show Smart Chicago. So Smart Chicago is a collaborative, kind of like the collaborative that set up Hack for MN, but they've built several different applications using the city's data about like health, crime statistics, all these data silos that may or may not have been open to the public, or there's a process to get to it, but they're just making it easier for citizens to see what's going on. There's an MN data opener that's going on right now, and there's actually a poll with that. I don't know if I can actually hit the link. I don't think I can. It's a virtual hackathon. So it's an online state demographer's office. James is actually judging in this one right now, and people are building programs and applications around that, and they're going to be voting on it to see. And when they're voting, it's whichever one's done the most, or the idea that out of the judging panel thinks that could actually be turned into a business, or maybe the best, the freshest idea or the most innovative thinking idea from that. And then in turn, they're going to get access to people that can either help them with their business or give them advice with their business. And that's really what it's all about, is collaborating and being civically, we're all working with one another to provide something that hasn't been made before and something for the community to see. For some of this, I have a lot of information on to do some of these hackathons, and if you're interested in doing some of these, I'd be more than happy to, if you wanted to contact me, and then I can put you in place with some of the state and city officials that we worked with in the past. Doing a hackathon is really neat because it's really like a jam or an on-conference where you just have a certain section of time where you know that you're working to solve an issue or a problem that you're in a group, and it builds, it builds social skills, it builds collaboration skills, and it's really like a concentrated, 48-hour period, 24-hour period that when you're working with those people, you learn team skills. It gives growth. Even if you're not building an application, you're learning the process. You're learning kind of like an entrepreneurial outlook on building things. So I think that's really important for, like you're talking about rural Minnesota and how you can connect people. And by talking about community business integration, if you have a business provide the space and the community provide the members, and leaders in that community can provide like a certain framework to go around, you can do these type of events. It's just kind of like when I looked at the social media breakfast, they had a framework that they worked around and a set that they did, and that's just what we did with the hackathon. And it's just taking a space, talking about doing something innovative, and then doing it. And then I guess that's what I have for now. I'd love to have any questions. I want to make sure that I've, a lot of times people are apprehensive when I say the word hackathon. I think a lot of times hackathons, small cities, and, I did see a question here. What would be some rural or small city applications? How would they get involved? So when I talked to the Blandin Foundation and I spoke to Bill Boucher, who's setting up City Camp, I talked to them about doing a panel discussion with local leaders that have done hackathons. So what we're doing is we're getting, I think it's around 9 to 10 of us for the on-conference that Saturday, so that'd be November 9th. And then anyone that's interested in learning what we know or getting networks to city and government leaders that have access to data, or maybe just the process, they would be able to meet and talk to all of us, and hopefully we can then, you know, I had talked about doing maybe a train-the-trainer technique where we can give you the information and then work on maybe some mentorship if you want to do such a process in the future. As far as like, there's ways to do it virtually. You know, right now I'm interested in the MN Data Opener because this is a virtual hackathon where they're leaving it up to the people that are joining to get into groups and work together. And so I am actually going to be talking to the state to see how that went together and what we can learn from that, because all of this innovation and civic ingenuity, I think, is building to something greater. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Josh, I have a question. This is Bill Coleman. Can you talk a little bit about the connection between the data sets and the kind of the hackathons and the application development? I think that's really an important tie there. And so as people look around and see, you know, how do they even know what people are collecting in terms of data?
And that was probably like the first, what I did is I connected to Code for America, Open Twin Cities, and some people that were involved with working with the government data already, and kept talking to them, and they had access, or they knew people that knew how to get access to data. So I mean, in the city and the state, they collect data all the time on anything that's going on. You know, like right now they have GIS information with active snow plows, and thank God there's no snow out today. But I mean, you could see live data that they're just putting away somewhere to have the data, and they're not doing anything with it right now. So these people have already connected to them, and there's data links out there. So like I worked a lot in the geo section that has, you know, terabytes of data with links, and a lot of these come out in, not to get too technical on this thing, but like XML or CSV. There's Excel spreadsheets full of data that people can parse and put together in a GUI graphic interface to project what's going on. So MinPost just downloaded crime statistics from the city of Minneapolis, and then are putting that through a graphic interface so you can see where crime is happening in your city. So that would be an example of taking data that's being provided but not being used. You know, maybe it's being used by the police department or by journalists that are doing it, but really the public isn't looking at it at the time, and they're taking it and showing it to the public in a way that everyone can access it. Does that answer your question? I can dive deeper.
No, it's very good. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that presentation, Josh. Of course. I think we'll still have some time for questions at the end as well.
All right.
Our next, thank you. Our next speaker is Tom Garrison. Tom is Director of Communications for the City of Egan and has shepherded Egan's many broadband initiatives from idea to fruition. The work that the City of Egan has done has had significant impact statewide on broadband development across Minnesota, so I thank Tom for that. One of their initiatives has been a decades-long effort to bring their top technology people from across their corporate community into the community to serve as a resource to the City Council. Tom, do you want to tell us about your Egan Tech Working Group?
Sure. I'm going to kind of start kind of in reverse order if I can. Oops. Mary, how am I advancing this? Are you doing it on that end, or am I doing that?
You can do it like right underneath your PowerPoint. There's a next button.
Oh, I see it. Yep. Sorry. Thank you for that.
Got it. Yep. No problem.
The technology working group I'm going to get to, but I thought I'd just quickly tell you about what Access Egan is, and then get to the heart of our discussion. Access Egan is a little over 16-mile wholesale fiber network. It's open to any carrier that wants to serve Egan businesses. It's a carrier class network. which implies certain things about the reliability of the network. And it cost us about $2 million. Now, that's not money every community might necessarily have. In this case, though, it was by targeting antenna lease revenues on our water towers to be able to use non-tax revenues. So I guess the point is, to other communities, you may think that there isn't money to do some things, and there may or may not be, but check out the options without necessarily tapping into general tax dollars. And then we have, so our role is as a wholesaler, and the retail services are provided by providers that we sign to the network. And so far we have signed 3. Arvig is very well known in greater Minnesota, Frontier in significant portions of the state. Velocity is more just here in the metro area. So at this point, I'm going to just have you guys watch a very short video so you can understand what that is, and then we'll talk exclusively about the Tech Working Group and how we got that started.
Egan, Minnesota is home to one of the most dynamic job centers in the Twin Cities region.
Oh gosh. Let's see here.
The city of Egan strives to provide an environment where both large corporations and small to medium-sized businesses
Here, I'm going to start that
grow
over.
Egan, Minnesota is home to one of the most dynamic job centers in the Twin Cities region. The city of Egan strives to provide an environment.
You know why? It's because I think you're not hearing the sound because I'm on my phone. So I think the only option would be for me to either hold my phone up to my computer speakers or not do the video. Which one would you rather do, Tom? Do you want me to try to hold my phone up to the computer?
Why don't we do this? I'll go ahead to the other part of the presentation. I'm sensitive for other stuff to follow here, and then if time allows, maybe we can play that at the tail end. That's right.
All right. Sorry about that, Tom. I didn't realize that was going to happen.
Okay. We can go back to presentation setting then. So getting to the point of doing a $2 million build certainly did not happen overnight, and I will be the first to acknowledge that. Our Tech Working Group was initially founded as just a one-time 6-month technology task force back in 2004. And our mayor went and made an appeal to some of our largest employers and said, would you loan us your chief technology officer or your chief information officer, your CIO or CTO, and we're going to meet once a month. And this was at a time years ago that Chaska was touting a Chaska wireless. You know, should we go wireless? What do we need to do? And by getting those local companies together, we quickly learned that that really wasn't the solution for what Egan needed. Now, that's going to vary from community to community. And what they ask of us, and they were more than willing. It's funny, sometimes we sit back, but folks like to be asked, I think, generally. And yes, we're all busy. But by making it once a month and making it at a convenient time, and you need to find out what that is, in our case, it was 7:30 to 9 in the morning, we really developed some really incredible allies, because sometimes municipal efforts can be controversial with the provider community. When you have the user community stepping up saying, no, we want them to be doing this, it helps mute the noise a little bit. And the expertise and the access they have, I have to tell you, in 2004, other than believing in technology, my my youngest son would tell you I am not a technologist at all. I turn to him to help when he's around. And you just start reading things and paying attention to things and trying to ask questions until you understand it so that you can explain that to somebody else. What you see here in the background are a couple of things. No, Egan doesn't look like that picture on the lower left. That's actually a picture from Almere in the Netherlands, and we did a video conference back in the mid-2000s with a best practice city in Europe to find out what they were doing, how they were doing it, and exchanging views on that. So depending on what you read and what you come across, and then reaching out to those people and having more conversation, I think just as the gentleman right before me indicated that people love to help and assist, and that's what we found. And even went one step further. So are any of you familiar with the Gartner Group? The Gartner Group is a major national research firm that is hired by the private sector. And think here, it's Fortune 500 companies, it's other high-tech companies, but they really have an eye on market trends, what's going to be happening with technology, those kinds of things. City of Egan in a million years could never afford those kinds of things. But when you develop the right relationships, people can get access to some of those reports and information for you if you're careful in how you use them. And so what we found over time was by reading lots of stuff, and the next one is something that Bill's firm actually helped us with quite a bit. You need to map what capability you have in your own community, both for fiber, for wireless, for any kinds of connectivity. And sometimes that information can be hard to get. But then when you're working with local communities and getting them to start tracking it on the go forward, because they see the permits that come in to do these kinds of builds, you can over time piece together a pretty good map that will help folks from a economic development standpoint say, yeah, that's a community I might like to locate. And then we talked, as so many of you have done, leveraging your local talent. Start asking, and it doesn't have to be a large company. There are small and mid-sized companies who are doing some incredibly interesting things. By doing the breakfast, I thought that's a great idea. You start learning what talent is around you that can be brought to bear. I think as it relates to a technology working group, I want to say a few things about what this is and what it isn't. I really believe at that level it should be by invitation only. It's the people you want to have there. In other forums, you can do the wider, more open discussion. In our case, as a creature of government, if the City Council were to appoint a task force or to appoint an advisory commission, they have to do all the naming, and it can sometimes be a political type of thing. The reason I'm saying less is more is by being willing to accept a kind of a lesser status. We're just a working group. We get together and talk about these things. We don't have any power, that kind of thing. What that allowed us to do was to work a little more quietly, a little bit more collaboratively, and than you could have in some of those other settings. And that allowed us to get buy-in and then move out from there. So by no means am I suggesting do you not be transparent or invite the wider community conversation, but as a point of where you start first. And then, encourage people. Not everybody should be there just because they're bright in technology. If there are bright finance people, if there are chamber people, if there are conservative, hey, let's pay attention to what our return on investment or what our measurements are. All of those skills you need to come together to make sure that you don't make mistakes along the way. We have been saved many, many times by the sage advice of others, but you got to be willing to listen and not go headlong into something just because you want to go into it. I think then you have to deliver. If you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to get people out of there at 9 a.m. sharp so they can get on to their other business, you absolutely need to do that. If you say you're going to produce something within a report within X time frame, you've got to deliver on that. And I think you have to think ahead and prepare for the skeptics, because there will always be people who will take pot shots at what you're doing, and kind of the reverse of the common statement, but in this case, the best defense is a good offense in terms of looking ahead to what people might say, might criticize, and try to prepare some of the messaging around that so you're ready when that happens and not just in the soup. With that, I don't know if there's time to go back to the video, but I'd be happy to answer more detailed questions about how to do that. Okay, and Mary, I guess I see something here too on the computer's muted. So.
Yes, you and I weren't hearing it because our computers were muted. So I think that we could play the video right now if you wanted, and everyone else could hear it just fine.
Let's do that.
You want to try it? Okay, here we go. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat box, so everyone out there, let us know if there's either an echo or if you can't hear it. But I'll just play it right now. Thanks.
Egan, Minnesota is home to one of the most...
There.
Egan, Minnesota is home to one of the most dynamic job centers in the Twin Cities region. The city of Egan strives to provide an environment where both large corporations and small to medium-sized businesses grow and prosper. So whether you're serving customers across town or around the world, the city of Egan understands it takes super fast, secure, safe, abundant, and redundant internet connections, digital roads, if you will, to compete in the global marketplace. That's why we're proud to introduce you to Access Egan. Access Egan is a light-speed, fast, high-performance fiber network built by the city of Egan. With more than 16 miles of fiber throughout Egan's business district, many businesses will have access to affordable fiber as never before. Carriers and providers lease these fiber lines to provide less expensive, high-capacity connections to you. Access Egan does not sell retail services, but rather this open access system means these ultra-high-performance connections are available to any carrier or provider to assist your business. You get access to new first-mile fiber, not copper connections, with up to a gigabit of equal upload and download speeds if you want it, delivering capability to your business. What does this mean for you? Fiber delivers much higher bandwidth, faster data uploads and downloads, as well as increased audio and video quality. Fiber is more reliable than copper connections and results in increased uptime for your network connections. You'll be able to choose from a variety of carriers and providers for internet, phone, data backups, and many other broadband services. By eliminating the cost of building new fiber lines, they will now be able to serve your site with more choices on your network design and additional redundancy. Increased access to carriers and providers means more competition, more choice, and lower costs for your business. Ready to take advantage of ultra-high performance fiber? Call your carrier or provider of choice and ask them to consider using Egan's digital roads to deliver a faster world to you, keeping you as a happy customer. It's Access Egan, helping you access the world fast.
Thanks, Mary. If we can go back, I'll advance it. Be happy to answer any questions. I should point out that that video was actually produced by our Public Educational Governmental Access Center. That was not sent out to some commercial enterprise. We did buy a little bit of stock footage that was in there, but at a reduced price.
Thanks, Tom. Bill, are you still out there?
I am. Tom, what's next on your agenda for City of Egan now that you have your fiber network up and running?
Well, there's a lot in that fiber network up and running. Having providers on it is one thing. Having end customers on it is quite another. We just had a rollout September 25th, and now the chase begins to get customers on there. Had some great qualified leads come out of that. Our city council, we worked with a firm called Design 9 out of Blacksburg, Virginia, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Cohill. Really helped our city council begin to move through a range of options of things that we could do. And initially there were, 12 different strategies, then 7, then 2, and the second one we actually thought we would deliver on first, and it's ended up being something we're still chasing, and that is to try to get a specialized type of data center south of the river, if you will, here in Egan. If you think of the Twin Cities as a whole, not all, but many of the broadband connections in the state all connect into a building known as the 511 building. And it just happens to be just right across the street from where the Viking Stadium construction is going to be. So think really expensive servers and think pile driving going on next door. It's not necessarily a good mixture. And we have companies here that tell us that they would lose $1 million a minute or more if they were down. So we're very focused on that goal. What we want to have is what's called a kind of a carrier hotel, if you will. It's where the providers come together, and that's where they do their cross connects. The 511 building is very valuable, but what else? And most other states have 2 or more of those types of major facilities, and we'd like Egan to be the next place for that, and then next places after that. Things are, data centers are going in Duluth and St. Cloud and Elk River and all kinds of places, and that's a good thing. But in terms of where all the carriers come together, that has not been happening, and we think should. Kind of a long-winded answer, I apologize.
Nope, no problem, that's great. Any other questions for Tom? If not, I think there's, Egan is certainly one of Minnesota's highest technology cities with companies like Delta and Thomson Reuters and Blue Cross Blue Shield, but every community has their leading technologists. And so I think it's important that every community think about how to pull those people together, both for the community benefit in terms of policy, direction, and educating officials, but just as much for these opportunities that maybe they can collaborate. Maybe one person knows a lot about voicemail and the other person knows a lot about disaster recovery. And in rural communities, maybe that information isn't so readily available. People just having a chance to shoot the breeze about it. And so I think providing that kind of forum, you may find that there's more people out there who are interested and can really contribute to your community than you realize. So,
Bill, I had a question for you related to that. This is Tom again. Back when you helped us with the mapping project, Can you tell the group what you were initially being told by, it was the predecessor to CenturyLink at that time, in terms of whether they felt there was a need to do that, and any thoughts on documenting the case?
Well, I think it's always good to go on a basis from facts. You know, if you get 20 people together in a community meeting about where broadband is or where it's not or where there's fiber, you can spend your whole meeting with people disagreeing about those kind of questions. And so I think anytime you can bring facts to the table, it certainly clarifies things. I think, you know, certainly at that time, you know, the availability of DSL service in Egan was a big question mark, and where it was and where it wasn't, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure that out, as well as the availability of fiber. And so we were, of course, providers said, you know, essentially none of your business. And so I think Tom's GIS kind of building permit department did a great job of actually checking through permit files for where people had put in fiber and so on, and we were able to create those maps. And I've always told people the best way to get a provider to give you information about where their fiber is to draw some maps and let them make the corrections. And so I think the maps that we created in Egan that time certainly changed the way providers looked at that. They didn't like it. So that was actually got to be a lot harder to get that information after we had the maps in Egan. But I think the Connect Minnesota maps, maybe with their flaws or not, have provided a lot of great information about where broadband service is or maybe isn't. But it's still that information about where quality, you know, fiber networks are, who's there. That's still quite difficult to get because we know just because we don't know who's in necessarily every trench or in every place. But I always tell people, you know, the providers never want to give you a map of their fiber, but they put orange posts right above it. So you can create maps through a little legwork and looking around and trying to do those things. And some providers, especially the competitive providers like Inventus and Zayo, will put their maps online because they actually want to sell services on them. And so that's it's good to use them as a maybe here's you put the maps up with those people are providing information. Some of the other providers then feel compelled to respond on a competitive basis, saying, "Oh, we have fiber too." But getting the facts about broadband is always tough.
Bill, I think that's a really good point because, and I see the pendulum swinging just a little bit. When folks feel like they're missing out on some business opportunities, they're a little bit more inclined to share maps with you. But the larger point behind all of this is from an economic development standpoint, and it doesn't matter where that is. That's as true in Brainerd as it is in Egan. When folks who do site selection work do that, they might cross you off the list before they've even talked to you just because of not being aware of where your infrastructure is or what the capabilities are. And from an economic development standpoint, I can tell you that again and again and again, that mapping capability has helped us when we do learn that somebody's sniffing around or looking about something new, to say, here is what we have, here is where we go. And even for the things that are missing, to be able to have the kind of conversations that you might develop from the breakfasts and the other things by getting the business community together. Sometimes collectively you can solve what individually nobody would.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you owe me dinner, Tom, since those maps are so good. Oh,
notice
silence
the
there.
silence.
Thanks.
Silence. Definitely.
Yep. I want to thank Tom and Josh and Sarah and Julie for their presentations today. And just going to turn it over to Mary now. Mary?
Well, thanks again, everyone. It was great. Our next webinar is going to be Thursday, November 14th from 3 to 4 p.m. and our topic will be online tools for community economic development. Thanks again, everyone, for attending, and have a really great rest of your day. Bye.